I've always been drawn to broken characters, and so when I found the bathtub scene and the way that Jaime and Brienne, or Jaime opens up to Brienne about what happened with Aerys, that he ends up dying, with this information, and the only person who knows is Brienne. I'm a massive Braimy shipper for that reason alone. But when I watched how Nikolai did that scene, I broke. I broke. And it's still my favorite episode of Game of Thrones, simply because it really encapsulates how human Jaime is. And I have a Clash of Kings behind my phone that's recording this at the moment, and I have not gotten through the whole book yet, but I want to get to A Storm of Swords so I can see what the books did that the show didn't. But after I heard about Jaime and I really fell in love with his character, not only after watching the bathtub scene in Harrenhal, but when I got to the episode in the show where he and Catelyn are talking and he gives that infamous line that is still my favorite line he's ever said. It's the one about, here's to Aerys Targaryen, second of his name, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, and to the sword I shoved in his back. Like, my mind when I heard that was just absolutely blown. So I started a fic for him. I love House Stark, and I love the Lannisters, and I love House Targaryen. And a lot of people don't like the Targaryens. That's fine. You and I are not the same, okay? But I wrote a fic for Jaime in which the beginning of the fic is pre the beginning of the show. And basically it amounts to this. Daenerys' sister is Rhaella. And I know that's what her mother's name is too, but bear with me here. Daenerys' sister is Rhaella. Rhaella and Jaime grew up together. Or Rhaella, Jaime, and Cersei grew up together. Rhaegar and Rhaella are like 4 years apart in age or something along that line. But Rhaella's there when Jaime kills Aerys. And the only reason why Rhaella ends up surviving the sack of King's Landing is because she and Jaime grew up together, he loves her, and so he wants to save her life, and that's what he does. And the whole fic is basically Rhaella coming to terms with, at the beginning, which I started it in mid-season 2, at the beginning, the fact that she'll never have him, because why would a Lannister fall in love with a Targaryen when he has his sister, who is, and I quote, the most beautiful woman in Westeros? So, to answer this question, His Little Grace, Keeper impacted me specifically because of all the fics that I've ever written for my OCs. And if any of you want to read this, I am really trying to get people to read this fic. Let me know in the replies. But this is the fic I took and put the most time into because I really wanted it to be made known that, hey, she's a person and she went through a lot of crap and she doesn't want to be, and I did a lot of research for this. There's so much about the Targaryens that the show doesn't tell you. I wanted her to be different from her ancestors and from Daenerys, which is what ended up happening. But she went through, I made her very human. And a lot of people who write OCs, some of them can be Mary Sue's. That's not really a call out post, it's just a generalization, okay? But because I made her so human, I went and highlighted all of her trials and her tribulations that she went through and trying to not only be her own person, but falling in love with Jaime, who at the start doesn't want her. He wants Cersei. And then he realizes that, oh, hey, Cersei has been manipulating Rhaella this entire time, keeping her from confessing how she feels about me for A, B, and C reason. And so by the end of the fic, Jaime ends up embracing how he feels about Rhaella. And that's all I'm going to tell you, just in case any of you want to read it. But being able to write a character who is just so human and who goes through the same thing that I do, just in a different kind of circumstance, probably was the most satisfying thing about writing Keeper. Besides Saldounja, it is probably my favorite fic I've ever written. Okay, at Starflyer104, you talk to me all the time. I am very appreciative of you. I've got a lot of your stuff written here. How do I become a more confident writer? And again, like I said in the beginning of this video, there are going to be things I say that you don't agree with, and that's fine. We've got different levels of experience here, okay? But how do I become a more confident writer? I've got 4 things written here. Practice. I don't care if you write 5 words, 5 sentences, 5 paragraphs, or 500 words, okay? The more you do it, the better you get. Contrary to popular belief, I didn't used to have confidence in my writing, especially on Tumblr, because most of you who are writers on Tumblr know that the like to reblog ratio is god awful. It is, I can't stand the like to reblog ratio on here. But the more you do it, the better you get. Even if you're writing for your own clone OCs or your own OCs or your favorite comfort character or whatever, write more. Just write on a notebook paper, on a napkin. You have a line of dialogue that comes to you 3 seconds before you're going to sleep. Get up, write it on your phone, put your phone back on the charger. Practice makes perfect sounds so dumb, but I'm serious. Practice makes perfect in this case, okay? Reading other people's stuff. Like I said earlier, I want to read more of other writers. I don't know that many other writers. I read Kara, and she has questions on here too. I read Kara's stuff. Elisha, if you don't follow Beskars and you like Obi-Wan, please just go follow Beskars. If you can't find her blog, ask me, because I have it saved, because apparently she doesn't appear in the search engine anymore, at least not for me. So I read Elisha's stuff a lot. Fantastic writer. Michaela writes these short little blurbs that I just adore, because there's so much stuff, there's so much packed into the way that she writes. Hannah and Savannah write Obi-Wan in a way that just makes me Hannah and Savannah write Obi-Wan in a way that just makes me so soft. I read a lot of Obi-Wan fic. There are people who I have befriended or talked to whose names I can't really remember at the moment, but Painkiller 80, you interact with me all the time. You told me your name and it's totally slipping my mind, which is rare, but I love the way that you write the clones. I just do. If I haven't read your stuff yet, I promise it's not purposeful. I just can't find, like, I am not good at finding other writers online, which is another part of the reason why I did this, is because I want to interact with you more, to be able to help you, and for you to maybe teach me something I don't already know yet. But reading other people's stuff, this came to my mind when I joined the Supernatural fandom and found my favorite Castiel writer of all time, Web Cricket. If you are a Cass fan and you like well-written stuff, and I'm not just talking about one-shots, I'm talking about blurbs and drabbles and series and like everything under the sun. If you want a Cass blog that really grasps the roots of this character, go follow her. Everything she writes is art in word form, and she probably doesn't believe me when I say that, but because I got so invested into the way that she wrote, something clicked inside my head, and the more I read of her stuff and kept writing, the better at writing I got, and the more confident at writing I got, because I was reading other people's stuff. Not just her, but she was definitely a big catalyst in what made my confidence boost. So Cricket, if you ever end up watching this, because you're not online as much anymore, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, honestly, thank you, because you have been a big, and we've never met, which is my favorite part about fandom, is that you can get impacted by people who you've never met, and she was definitely one of them. Read other people's stuff. If you know fandom writers, the Clone Wars, just prequels, sequels, Star Wars, prequels and sequels and originals of Star Wars, Supernatural, The Walking Dead, Marvel, which has basically died out for the time being. I have a desire to read more people's stuff. I am also guilty of not reblogging every writer's stuff. Most of the time I try to interact to some degree, but if you know people who you think are good writers that I don't know of, let me know. Leave it in the replies, because I am so desperate to give writers validation. That's what I want to do. read other people's stuff, okay? I will try at some point to go along and make a fic rec list because I have a tag, but the tag gets buried in all my other tags. Welcome criticism. I'm not that great at this. I wish I was great at this, but I think the reason why I'm not great at this is because people don't criticize. I think readers are afraid to, and I get it. I do. But let me reiterate something to you, okay? Reader to writer, we're all people. I will never, ever, ever, ever shun any type of feedback. A keyboard smash, an emoji, a reblog with a comment, a reblog with a reblog with art, a meme. Kara does that all the time. It makes my day. Any type of feedback is so welcome, because not only does it mean that you are interested and invested in what that writer wrote, now you get to share what you loved that writer wrote with other people. And honestly, I don't know why people wouldn't want to do that, because content creators don't get paid. They do it for you, and they do it because they love that character. Criticism, if you felt like my writing didn't transition well, or if you felt like it was clunky, or you didn't understand the general message, which I have had people tell me that before, if you want to get more confident in your writing, welcome criticism from other people. And I'm not talking like criticism that puts you down. I'm talking criticism in the sense to help you get better and lift you up. That's the type of criticism that you should welcome. Welcome that type of criticism. And my fourth part to this question, keep writing. If you get 5 notes on a fic, if you get 55 notes on a fic, if you feel like your writing is terrible, don't say it in your summary. I know people, and I'm a little guilty of this too, that it turns them off to your writing or to whatever you've written whenever you say, I think this fic is terrible, but I'm going to post it anyway. You're allowed to feel like your fic is terrible. I'm not invalidating your feelings. I'm saying, even if you're like, this is the worst thing I've ever written, post it. The more you write, the better you get, and the better you get, the more you write. I don't know if that makes a ton of sense, but it did in my head. The Fox fic I wrote the other day, I had that idea in my head for a couple of days at that point, and Hamilton has been on my mind specifically for what's going on in the world at the moment, but Hamilton's been on my mind so much that I was like, this could make a fantastic Fox fic. I don't write fics for characters I don't know well, and the thing about Fox is that we don't know him. We never see him. He's only ever in his armor, and I can write Jesse, Wolf, Fives, Echo, Cody, Rex, Kix, but I can't write Fox well. And so whenever I posted that fic, I was really insecure about it at first, because I was like, why would I write this? Why would I post something for a character that I don't know? And then you guys loved it, okay? And I put a lot of effort into that fic because I was trying to give you a version of Fox that you could either relate to or love, or, whatever, fill in the blank. Keep writing, no matter if people read it or don't read it. I promise at some point someone will come along. I've got screenshots all throughout my phone of people who have come along in the past and given me compliments that I have had ingrained into my brain since the day they said them. Because even whenever my confidence wavered and I felt like I wasn't being appreciated for all the content I was putting out, and I put out more content than what's just on Tumblr, I kept writing anyway. And writing for me has been just such a gratifying part of my life, because I'm giving characters what their shows and movies don't give them. I'm giving my OCs their own stories. Every single OC I have ever written has some part of myself in them. Characteristics of me that are in characters that don't exist, but because I write them to be human, people receive them so well. Keep writing, okay? From me to you, from you to me. Keep writing, no matter the circumstance. Just keep writing, okay? Do you ever, okay, this was the continued part of Starflyer's question. Do you ever put too much of yourself into what you write? I just told you that. Yes, I do. The only times that I've put an abundance of myself into what I write that kind of makes me iffy about publishing it. I have a character for The Walking Dead, and I told you guys, I'm not super invested into this anymore. Season 10 is my favorite. Season 10, 9, and 4 are my favorites. But I got into the show because of Carol and because of Melissa. And I adore, like, I have never, ever... Carol is just such an enigma in herself. If you don't know about comic book Carol Peltier, comic book Carol and show Carol are two totally different people. At this stage in the story of where The Walking Dead is right now, Carol is already canonically dead, okay? And I think they were planning on doing that in season 3, but they didn't. And Melissa has just taken Carol's story way up and around. Some of it was a little redundant, I will give you that, but Carol's story resonates with people because she is an abuse survivor who has endured, not just endured the abuse that she was subject to before the world ended in the show, but her traumatic, like all the trauma that she's gone through since season 1. She just keeps going, and it's so inspiring, especially to me. But when I got into The Walking Dead, I developed this OC named Aaliyah, who essentially was meant to be like a daughter to replace Sophia, or to give, let me put that differently. I didn't mean to replace Sophia. My intention of creating Aaliyah was to give Carol a second chance at being a mother. Aaliyah's story is very choppy because I wrote, instead of writing a full fic with chapter by chapter, which would correspond with episodes in the show that I felt were relevant to her, I wrote one-shots. And let me show you how long I've been working on this. One of my best friends in high school was a girl who wore, basically what she'd clarify as either a biker chick or a goth type of outfit. And I was convinced, because I wasn't that great of a person in high school, for this reason alone, I was convinced she and I would never be friends. I took one look at her and I said, I'm never gonna be friends with that girl. My geometry teacher at the time totally jinxed me and put us in a group together. Selena and I became best friends, and she was the one who introduced me to the show. And in her introducing me to the show, I created Aaliyah for her. This binder has 70-some stories in it. If you can see it on camera, I've been working on this character since 2015. This is all I've written for her. And it stems from season 3 to where The Walking Dead is currently, most of it. I will not publish her. I absolutely refuse to publish her because of all the characters I have written. Like I said, every OC of mine has some type of characteristic of me. Of all the characters I have written, Aaliyah is the most like me, for a multitude of reasons I'm not really going to get into. But it's not a bad thing to do that. It's really not. I mean, if you manage to put in characteristics of you, of what you've been through, you're making your characters more human. And that doesn't just go for OCs. You can do that in second person reader insert fics too. Do you ever put too much of yourself into what you write? Yes and no. I have. I've been doing it for this character. Will I ever publish her into a fic? No, because she resonates too much with me, because Carol resonates too much with me. She is very private, and the only people who know about her are people I have willingly told about her. I can't say any more than that. I hope that answers your question, because that's not all I can think of for it. Kara. Okay, I've got like 4 different parts of Kara's question. A memorable moment in your writing fanfic. I've got 2 of them. I mentioned my Portuguese best friend earlier. I started watching Star Wars when my brother was a kid. He was 3 when Revenge of the Sith came out, and I remember it so vividly because my mom made him a cake. It was his favorite movie as a kid. My mom made him a cake of Obi-Wan and Anakin's duel on Mustafar, and it was so well done. He had the tiny little Obi-Wan and Anakin figures on top of the cake, and so I grew up watching Star Wars. My dad's not as big of a fan, my mom's not as big of a fan, but Jordan loved it as a kid. I got more into it as a teenager, whenever I really started understanding the characters. And so I wrote a fic for Obi-Wan. Not my greatest fic, but I wrote it for my best friend for her birthday that year, which was 2016 or something along that line.